Former Arizona State receiver Elijhah Badger is getting on campus today. Billy Napier, make it happen.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Tuesday. Happy Dinger Tuesday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. And Elijhah Badger, wide receiver out of Arizona State, top receiver in the transfer portal, top player that Florida is realistically in on, arguably the top player available right now. He's on campus today for the Florida Gators. He is beginning his official visit today, which is today through Thursday. Okay, and I want to make this part clear. I'm sure before then we'll hear the visit's going well, this, that, and the third. If there's going to be movement made with Elijhah Badger, I don't expect to get a definitive answer, a definitive commitment or anything like that until Thursday. Okay? At the earliest. It's just, I don't think it's likely for it to be on its official visit and commit on the first day of it when there's 3 days. That's also a pretty, like, I know that a lot of us would be like, oh, like Billy convinced him on day one. I feel like that's also kind of hasty there. But he's on campus Tuesday through Thursday. And like I said, like Billy Napier, make it happen. Elijhah Badger, his main concern right now, when just talking about him, is the medicals. That's what we've heard a ton of. We've heard the back, his medicals have to check out. And again, we had this conversation last week, where Florida is generally pretty conservative as far as clearing kids, but that tends to be with things that are neck injury, heart concern, not so much the back. So if his back gets cleared, if his medicals check out, Billy Napier, don't let Elijhah Badger leave campus without committing to the Florida Gators. Simple as that. Say NIL, we'll make whatever you need, we'll make it happen. You can do that. You can go to the boosters and say, hey, we get this amount of money, we get this player, he makes us a lot better. And you can make your shot there, you can make your claim there, you can make your pitch there, whatever the hell you want to call it. Elijhah Badger makes your football team better immediately. And I know that there's Vegas isn't going to go, oh, they got Elijhah Badger, let's up the win total. But I promise you, internally, and by internally I mean in Gator Nation, not necessarily just inside the football program. Internally, if you land Elijhah Badger, your expectations get higher. Because right now, one of the biggest question marks surrounding the team, the roster right now for 2024 is, do you have a true top receiver duo? Do you have a true wide receiver one? And I say that knowing that Trey Wilson can be really, really good. But last year he played more gadget than anything else. I think he's going to become a true wide receiver one. I'm not saying he's there yet. It's just simply he's immensely talented. There's no denying it in any way, shape, or form. But he wasn't used like a true receiver last year. He was used like an offensive weapon last year, which is still fine. He's still one of the best damn offensive weapons in the entire country. Okay? But Elijhah Badger gives you a more refined, more proven route runner, a more refined, more proven wide receiver one option, or at the very worst, he's wide receiver two behind Trey Wilson. If Trey Wilson does live up to the expectation and the hype that we all have for him, really. Sorry, 95% of us have for him. Elijhah Badger also visited Washington and Arizona. Look, he left those schools. Like he went on those visits. and he's still taking this visit. He didn't commit to those schools. If you're Florida, you get him to commit to you. Like, you could do that. Unless he has some kind of timeline that he's working on, we'll see. But as far as we're concerned, he just hasn't made the decision yet, whatever it may be. Get him. If the medical's clear, get him. Worry about everything else later. And if you're not familiar with Elijhah Badger, if you didn't listen last week when we kind of went in depth on him, outside receiver, you can play him with Chimere Dike. You can play him with Trey Wilson. You can play him with Khalil Jackson, whoever it is. I think he's someone that would replace Khalil Jackson in the starting rotation more than anything else. Chimere Dike is going to play the slot a lot. So we're looking for really a starting outside receiver here. Trey Wilson is going to be one of those. And if the spring game is a correct indicator, Chimere Dike is going to play in the slot a lot. So you're looking for someone who could play outside, which is why Elijhah Badger wouldn't be replacing DK. He'd be replacing Khalil Jackson likely. And so you have that. You have someone who wins on a lot of his inbreakers. Like we looked at the numbers from PFF last year. This is like the behind the scenes numbers that our friends at PFF were very nice to share. 51.1% of his routes were in breaking. Another quarter of his routes were go routes, vertical. That's over 75% of his routes then were in breaking or vertical routes. 44% of his targets came on the in breaking routes. That's a lot of his targets. And he caught screens and found success on screens. 8.4 yards after the catch per catch. That's a fantastic number. And 7 yards after the catch per catch if you remove passes behind the line of scrimmage. Okay. So he was catching the ball downfield and still making men miss. It's not like his numbers were wildly inflated because he was catching screens and running. And then when he would catch a dig or a slant or anything like that, he wouldn't make plays. He still made a lot of those plays. Okay. 76.6% of his total yards came after the catch. Trey Wilson was at 88.2%. And if you remember, Trey Wilson had a ton of his catches behind the line, and Ricky Pearsall was at 38.8%. Almost double what Ricky Pearsall did after the catch, or almost double of his percentage came after the catch. He and Ricky had the same number of catches. Okay, so it's not a share there. And 38.6% of his yards came after the catch if you remove passes behind the line. 26 missed tackles forced, which was more than Trey Wilson and more than Ricky Pearsall. Okay, and I know that last week when I was comparing him to Ricky Pearsall, there were a bunch of people actually in the comments just like, well, Ricky did it against the SEC. Elijhah Badger did it with Jaden Rashada and a bunch of Publix employees throwing the football to him, which is no disrespect. Publix employees, I love you, but you're probably not a D1 quarterback. You're probably not a Power 4 starting quarterback, right? Elijhah Badger was doing it against worse competition than Ricky, yes, but with significantly worse quarterback play. Those things matter, right? And then, of course, we do have to talk about Florida. You're at the 85-man scholarship limit. That doesn't concern me at all. Just throwing that out there. That's not a concern for me. We will talk about why that's not a concern for me in a second. First, we are going to get a quick word from LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. And I've told you this before. I'm putting you on game here. If you go on LinkedIn, you can put in your settings that you are open for work in the perfect role. You're open for work, but you can set it so that the only people who can see that are other recruiters. So you're not going to have anyone from your job see that you're open for work. You can set it to go public that you're open for work and it'll show up on your profile picture, but you can also set it private so no one from your job will notice. You won't have, and you won't have that snitch from accounting say anything about you. No. They won't know. They won't know. You can set it and quietly look for work elsewhere. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And we're continuing the Elijhah Badger talk because Florida is presently at the 85-man scholarship limit. Not a concern for me in any way, shape, or form. You look at, first off, there's a lot of ways to create one scholarship spot available. Okay. Or there's a lot of workarounds for it. We can say that the no scholarship thing, just give them enough NIL to afford tuition. That's a possibility that most teams can kind of finagle and try to work around. Possibility. It's such a rare thing to see. Like, we haven't seen that much. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, when NIL hits, that's going to be a thing teams do. They're just going to drop millions and millions and millions on players, not have to worry about scholarship limits anymore, and just stack their team. It's not how things work, really, but it is a possibility. It's an option, not one that I expect Florida to actually pursue. There are two way more realistic options here. First, as cold-blooded as it may sound to suggest this, as cold-blooded as it may sound to recommend this, push a kid out. Okay? Push a kid out that you don't think is quality anymore. Because as your roster gets better from top to bottom, you're ideally flushing the bottom of the roster out, right? So push a kid out. Encourage a kid to leave if they want. I was told a while ago, I was told that Florida put an added emphasis on keeping their roster together during the second transfer portal window. You look at all the names that people were like, oh, they might be leaving, they might be leaving, they might be leaving, they might be leaving. We got what? Jordan Pouncey hit the transfer portal, and Riley Simons basically was just like, hey, like, I know I'm not gonna go pro playing football. I'm just gonna be a student assistant for Florida now, and that's what he is. That's how Florida cleared up two scholarship spots to get to 84, and then of course Jason Zandamela came in, brought them back up to 85. So Florida put an added emphasis on keeping their roster together during this second transfer portal window. We had a lot of guys, a lot of players that we all kind of talked about, and we were like, hey, they could hit the portal, they could leave. Wouldn't shock me. Like, I mean, Marcus Burke is a guy that I talked about that I've been a big advocate of his, been a big fan of his, but if he hit the portal, it wouldn't shock me. Things like that. We had those conversations, and then none of them left. Jordan Pouncey was kind of the guy that I think a lot of people were like, okay, well, you've been here a while, you're not playing, you're not gonna play, hit the portal. Riley Simons was another one where you're like, well, but we don't see you ever playing, hit the portal. And Riley Simons instead made, I don't know if it's a better decision, but it's one that I like. Adding a student assistant that's been in your program can kind of give you a feel, because now you have someone on your staff that has been there, like that. He's been in the locker room. He's friends with the guys. He can give you a little bit of insight, and that's something positive. So we've seen things get pushed out, or we've seen players get pushed out for whatever reason. You can do that with any of these players, especially if you bring in a receiver. Maybe it's more likely that another veteran receiver that doesn't play a ton bounces. Like, you add a guy to the receiver room, now you lose a guy from the receiver room. It can happen. One of those kids that, is maybe on the fence, you convince him to stay in the second portal window. Maybe you go, hey, you're a grad transfer, right? Maybe you should go. Just saying. You can do that. Make that happen. Clear a roster spot. There is another thing with Cam Carroll. Cam Carroll is still not recovered from his knee injury suffered last year, and he can receive a medical hardship waiver, which would make him not count against the scholarship limit. That would mean that he would not be able to play this year. But again, if he's not ready to play, he's not ready to play. It's not like they're just going to go, oh, you can't play week 1, or, oh, we need a scholarship spot, we're just going to medical hardship you. No. So you can get that hardship waiver that wouldn't count him against the scholarship limit. You can, there's a lot of things you could do. It's not exactly like the salary cap, but you can liken it to the salary cap, where there's a lot of things that NFL teams, NBA teams can do to work around the salary cap. There are quite a few things that college football teams can do to work around the scholarship limit. Push someone out, limit gone. And we saw Florida kind of work with the scholarship limit already by bringing in Asa Turner. That puts you up to 86 scholarships for the fall. But as long as you're good by the fall, then that's fine. So then they cleared those spots. And again, added Jason Zandamela. And now they're trying to make another move in the portal to add, or another move in the portal that will take a scholarship, to add Elijhah Badger. You can do that. You can work around. I'm not concerned with making it happen. Again, the approach should be, that's a guy that could help our football team. Bring him in. We'll worry about the scholarships later. The approach shouldn't be, we're at 85 scholarships. Just call it a day. We can't improve the team. This is a talent acquisition business, right? So add football players that help your team. Worry about the rest later. Don't have to worry about anything else right now. Just worry about the rest later. We are about to talk about another player joining the Florida Gators, but for 2025 in running back commit Chad Gasper. First, a quick word from a couple sponsors. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And to wrap up today's show, we're going to shift from Elijhah Badger, from Cormani McLean, from Jason Zandamela, from 2024, really, and talk about a 2025 running back commit that I did want to talk about a bit. We've had Brian Smith on the show maybe less than a month ago, talk about Chad Gasper. And he basically said, hey, one of the hardest parts about evaluating him is that he's had such few touches. He doesn't get a ton of touches because the offense, they've got a D1 QB. They've got like 3 or 4, at least last year, 3 or 4 D1 receivers, guys that are going to go play the next level. When you have that many players involved in the passing game, when you have that many QB receiver combos, you're going to throw the ball a lot. And so Chad Gasper was just a victim of, hey, we're going to throw the football a lot. It's 2023 at the time that this happened. Sorry, running back. And so Chad Gasper didn't get those touches. But if you've watched his film, which there's not a ton of it, again, limited touches. But if you've watched his film, he can do some stuff. He's not easy to bring down. I want to make that one clear. Multiple times he was taking hits from multiple tacklers and then falling almost always forward. Brought out the truck stick on quite a few occasions. I think, even if I'm not mistaken, you watch the high school tape that's on, I think it was 24/7. You watch the high school tape, and the first play is him just pummeling a safety. If I'm not mistaken, that's the first play of the film, is him taking the handoff, getting through with, the O-line open hole, safety, deep safety coming down. It's like single high. He comes down, and Chad Gasper puts him in a coffin. It was a wild truck stick, and then Chad Gasper scores a touchdown on it. It was nice. In that film, you get to see him line up in the slot, catch a couple passes. If I'm not mistaken, it was a few. But get to see him line up in the slot, catch a couple passes. One thing that stood out to me, And it seemed significant to me. It made me think of something that I don't typically talk about, or we don't typically talk about, I think, when we're talking about recruiting is well, we somewhat talk about it, but finding guys that not just fit your culture, fit what you want to do, but kind of have experience doing that already. We talked about it a lot with DBs. We talk about it a lot with, oh, do you have experience playing cover three? Do you have experience playing cover two, cover whatever you're going to play here? Do you have experience doing that already? Because then you're kind of ahead of the game. And we talk about, receivers. Do they run those crossers? Do they run vertical? Do they run these perimeter screens? Things like that. One thing that we haven't talked about much is at running back, whether or not you run out of the pistol. And that is something that it just intrigued me because Chad Gasper, I think the high school's name is Katie Jordan. Chad Gasper ran a lot out of pistol. In fact, that offense spent a lot of time operating out of the pistol set. And if you're unfamiliar, under center is when the quarterback is directly under center. There's no space, and he's taking the handoff from, again, he's crouched down underneath the center. He's got his hands in between his legs, takes a snap there. Shotgun, about 5 yards back. You take the snap back. Pistol, you're about the halfway point or a little bit closer to shotgun, and you take the snap. Pistol is what you see Florida run their offense out of a lot. Running back could be next to the QB. Running back could be behind the QB. You can work things over. I mean, if you watch the NFL, you'll see it way more than you see in college. Running backs can be in front of the quarterback and just like to the right or to the left and be helping in pass protection. You see things. But what Florida runs a lot of is the pistol set, which I know a lot of Florida Gators fans, you hate it. You hate the pistol. The pistol is the cause of everything. It's the cause of Florida losing games. It's the cause of Florida giving up hundreds and hundreds of yards to Jaden Daniels. It's the cause of global warming at this point. You guys hate the pistol. I get it. But it caused me to, like, watching that film caused me to ask, is Florida trying to recruit more guys that already play out of the pistol so that they're more comfortable doing it? And I can't just answer that question on my own. I've said it. I've played DB. I didn't play running back. I asked someone that plays running back. I reached out to an NFL running back that I know, and I was like, hey, I'm just curious. Is there a big difference from being a running back out of the pistol or out of the shotgun? And first off, he sent me a lot of a very long response that basically came down to his first response was, yes, there's a huge difference, all caps, huge difference. And it came down to a lot of the timing there. When you're coming out of the pistol, it's happening faster. You're getting the ball deeper instead of closer to the line of scrimmage. He says that, defenses have more time to kind of recognize what you're doing, what's going on, and they have more time to read you and make a stop and make a play there. You're getting the ball deeper. You have to be quicker reaction, as in you have to have a quicker reaction because you have less time to make your read and make your cut. Because also you don't get to make as many pre-snap reads because the quarterback's in front of you. So you don't get to see everything. And so a lot of times you're reacting there. He also did note that pistol works best if you have an extremely mobile quarterback. Should excite some fans for DJ Lagway. If you remember the Anthony Richardson days in Gainesville, that those a lot under pistol, a lot of explosive runs, fun stuff to watch. But Chad Gasper already used to playing out of the pistol. I'm curious to see if Florida continues to focus on running backs that run out of pistol a lot. Chad Gasper did that. We saw him line up in the slot and be a pass catcher. It's possible he can do that at the next level. Maybe not the frequency that he's done it, but it's possible that he can do that at the next level. But Chad Gasper, another running back that I'm very excited for. And I mean, Jabbar Jalib, don't miss. That's all I'm saying. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We will be back tomorrow, talk more Florida Gators football. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants, Country, and NFL 33, and we'll see you all next time.